everyone. Today will be a video on demand. In the first episode of this year, 2025, I shared my new African violet potting mix recipe, enhanced with the slow release fertilizer and a few other ingredients. I will include a link to that video in the description box below. And here is the recipe. The fertilizer I added to the mix is called Osmocote Flower and Vegetable, in particular this variety, and it has 14-14-14 NPK ratio. So it's a balanced fertilizer containing 3 main macro elements. It feeds plants for up to 4 months and it has a no burn pledge guarantee. So hopefully, I was hoping that there will be no root burn when I add it to my potting mix. Balanced fertilizers are the type of fertilizers that I have had the most successful results with growing African violets in my conditions. I know people ask me why I don't use African violets fertilizers. Some of them have higher phosphorus amount or any other kinds of fertilizers. And so I did try using a variety that had a higher phosphorus ratio and I wasn't successful in my conditions. My violets started having crowded crowns. And I read about bloom boosters that they can be only used occasionally to encourage blooming, but not on a regular basis. And on a regular basis, African violets prefer balanced fertilizers. 6 months have passed since I started using this new potting mix recipe with my African violets. And today I will discuss the trial results for the new potting mix and some adjustments that I made in the mix and in the fertilizing schedule. First, I'd like to say that my plants love the new potting mix. Some of them loved it more than others, and I will explain it in a minute. All the monthly blooms videos filmed beginning February of this year, of 2025, as well as the individual variety short features, show plants grown in the new potting mix. Looking at the monthly blooms videos and looking at the plants on this shelf, you can see the amount of blooms and the healthy foliage they have produced in the last 6 months, and they clearly enjoyed it. The foliage was growing more robust. The amount of blooms had far surpassed the way they used to bloom in the past when growing in the original potting mix and the simplified mix of peat, moss, and of course perlite with the liquid fertilizer in wick watering that I had used previously. I must add that all my plants are currently wick watered. Those of you who have followed me for a while know that I tried transitioning some of them to top watering in the past, but it turned out to be very time consuming, and eventually I had to revert to wick watering. With the wick watered plants, my main concern was that adding the slow release fertilizer directly to the potting mix would cause over-fertilizing that could lead to salt buildup, root damage, and stunted plant growth. The slow release fertilizer I chose did not have any micronutrients such as boron, copper, iron, manganese, zinc, etc. So I looked at the formula, and the formula here on the label shows only nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and no other elements. Micronutrients are important for plant growth, as plants require not only the main elements, but also a proper balance of all the essential nutrients for normal growth. So when I first started using the new mix with this Osmocote slow release fertilizer, I decided that I would continue using the liquid fertilizer that did have the micronutrients in it. In particular, this one, Orchid Pro Liquid Plant Food 786 NPK at 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water. And the list of all elements in its formula is shown on the reverse label. So it does have magnesium, boron, cobalt even, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc. The 6-month trial revealed the following types of challenges. Mainly, it was just two things that I have observed consistently. Some plants, the first type of challenge is that some plants, but not all, produced more suckers than normally these varieties would produce. So, for example, this one, Evening's Descent, you can see here how many suckers it has produced. This is a new plant that is trying to bloom. Beautiful variegation on this one. I love the pink shade on the leaf variegation. And so as a result, they need to be groomed more frequently than normally I would groom them. And that concerns only some of the varieties, but not all. For example, here you can see Anne by Betty Bryant, and she's doing wonderfully. She didn't form any suckers whatsoever, and she's just being a happy camper growing in the new mix. Then there are some varieties that bloom profusely and form suckers at the same time. So here is Rob's Outer Orbit. Look at the number of suckers here all around the main crown, and it keeps on blooming. And then finally, there are varieties that keep on blooming non-stop. This is one of them, Apache Gem, and it has bloomed so profusely and for so long that it stunted the growth of the crown center. And so to rectify this, I will be removing all of these blooms and let the plant focus on growing the new leaves. Of course, I'll repot it after removing all the blooms, and it will have fresh potting mix to grow the leaves, focus on growing the foliage. And here is the non-stop blooming machine, Cajun's Hot Expectations, that I wound up removing all of the blooms. I said that when I last showed it in the monthly blooms that I'm thinking of removing them. It's basically just blooming for a few months. And I'm seriously thinking that I should maybe remove the blooms and let it grow some foliage. I'm not sure what to do with it. And so now it's growing really nice, healthy foliage. But then, of course, let's check it out closer. And voila, it started growing the flower buds again. Cajun's Hot Expectations. So basically the profuse blooming more than normal and the sucker growth is what I have observed, but again, not with all of the varieties, just with some of them. The violets blooming especially profusely were growing under the full spectrum Barina grow light with warm yellow color temperature on one of these stands here, and which kind of makes sense because the warm color temperature in grow light is known to contribute to better blooming. So not surprisingly that they bloomed the most here under these lights. And this is LE Lilac Rain, or in the original language, LE Sireniевый дождь by Елена Libetskaya, or in Ukrainian, Olena Libetska. It's a Ukrainian hybridizer. It just had its own short feature, and it keeps on blooming really nicely under these lights. I noticed that those that kind of are known to cover the center of the crown, they are particularly in danger of blooming themselves to death, so to speak. So I have to watch out for these. This is a sport of Up Tomorrow Little Trio, blooming solid purple, Ace of Spades, Blue Dragon, really loving these warm yellow Barina Full Spectrum Grow Light. And this is Evening's Descent that formed so many suckers, the one that I showed you previously. Needs major grooming. Here is a trailer variety, Lituanica, and of course we know that trailers are supposed to grow in multiple crowns, but look at the amount of crowns, secondary crowns he had formed, grown in the new potting mix, and that's a very small pot. And of course, trying to bloom at the same time. This is a very beautiful trailer, so of course I don't mind that it has formed all these multiple crowns around the main stem, so I can propagate, detach these suckers and propagate them. And this one is even a basket. That's when they, instead of bloom, it creates like this crown on the stem growing from the main crown. It's really interesting. So that's how Lituanica has reacted to the slow release fertilizer in the potting mix. And at the same time, the others are totally fine. They're not growing suckers, they're growing beautifully. Like this is one of my favorite vintage varieties, Ness Candy Pink. You can't beat the foliage variegation on this one. And in combination with the hot pink color of the blooms, it's really a very pleasing variety to see. Ness Candy Pink, and this is Young Eva. And this is, of course, Apache Freedom that had its own individual short feature recently. It keeps on blooming foliage and blooms. It's literally like, I think, maybe 18 or 20 inches in diameter at this point with the slow release fertilizer in the potting mix. And the foliage looks fine. No stunting in the crown center. Just a happy, healthy plant. And finally, in addition to suckering on some of the varieties and also super profuse blooming on others, some varieties, again, but not all, just a few of them, started showing the burnt tips on the leaves. So here, Up Tomorrow Yosemite 2, we can see that the central new leaves look totally fine, but some burnt tips on the older leaves. So that definitely is a sign of the too much of a fertilizer for this particular variety. And of course, next to it, Anne doesn't have any of these signs, and Lituanica doesn't show it. But then here, Apache Gem, that's another variety that I found shows the fertilizer burn on the older leaves. So definitely this needed some adjustment. So the adjustments I made to rectify this was first with my fertilizing schedule. Because the slow release fertilizer was added to the mix, I had to cut down on the liquid fertilizer and limit the use of the Orchid Pro 786 in the wicking water. Instead of adding it with every refill of the reservoirs, I started refilling their reservoirs with plain water most of the time, except for once a month. When I refill them with the fertilized water once a month, I add the same ratio of this fertilizer like I used to do in the past when they didn't have the slow release fertilizer in the mix, at 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water of this particular fertilizer variety. and I usually refill them once a week. So they receive plain water for 3 weeks and then fertilized water for 1 week. I also made an adjustment to the potting mix thanks to the contribution of an expert grower who commented on my video a while back, so I'm very grateful for that. In the new recipe, I originally included an optional horticultural charcoal ingredient. And the primary benefits of charcoal are that it improves drainage, prevents root rot by absorbing excess moisture, and neutralizes toxins and chemicals in the soil, and reduces the risks of fungal growth due to its antimicrobial properties. While the benefits turned out to be that some benefits turn out to be rather detriments, and specifically because it neutralizes toxins and chemicals in the soil. And it has to do with the systemic granules insect control that I use as a preventative measure to protect my plants from insect infestations. The commenter said that the charcoal can interfere with the imidacloprid, active ingredient in the systemic insecticide. I did some research and it indeed confirmed that imidacloprid can be effectively absorbed by activated charcoal in particular. This absorption process deactivates the imidacloprid, rendering it biologically inactive for the insects listed on the insecticide label, including aphids, thrips, mealybugs, etc. So basically it defies the purpose of the insecticide granules in the potting mix. Very thankful for that feedback. So I went ahead and adjusted the potting mix recipe by removing the optional horticultural charcoal altogether. Now, important to mention, of course, the conditions in which this trial was conducted with the slow-release fertilizer potting mix for wick-watered African violets, because as we know, the violets can grow differently depending on the different temperature, different humidity in the growing room, and light settings, etc. So here you see my temperature conditions. Right now, the lowest is 73, the high is 79, and in the summertime, 79 is pretty much as high as the temperature goes up in this room. Because my thermostat has 77, but because this room is south facing, it gets a bit warmer by 2 degrees max. And then in the at night, the temperature can go as low as 68, I believe, is the lowest in the summer. So from 68 the lowest to 79 the highest. This is the temperature regime in this growing environment. And then the humidity goes anywhere from 40% to 50 and sometimes even 60 depending on the season. So right now you see in the summer, in July, 48 is the lowest and 51 is the highest percent humidity. For the light settings, please refer to my video describing all of my lights. So what do I plan on doing with this slow release fertilizer in the future? I plan on continuing using it, and once I finished this particular bottle, I will try and use the other variety that I found. It's called for indoor and outdoor plants. It was not balanced because that other variety contains some micronutrients. I don't have to worry about adding this liquid fertilizer in the wicking water, so I can just skip this one altogether and just use the slow release in the potting mix and refill with plain water. I will keep updating you on this channel about the progress of my slow release fertilizer potting mix testing. Stay tuned. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to support this channel. Happy growing!